What's up? This is Jay Dixon, midday host on Classix 1079. Welcome to Philly R&B Now, where we take a look at the music from back in the day and today. R&B music, you know, Philadelphia has a lot of stories and a lot of music, a lot of performers, artists, bands. And today we have Mr. Steve Green, famously known as the bass player and the brains, one of the creators behind the group Breakwater.
Right. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing great, man. Let me tell you, I've been a fan for a long time. You have the album there. Let's take a look at that album cover that's so famous that folks know about. That's the first Breakwater album when you guys were signed to Arista Records back in 1979, right?
Yes, indeed.
Right. So some folks have to do research on Breakwater, the music, but I'm just gonna fly right off the top of my head because I was in college when that album came out, and I remember when the DJs were all so excited about the album cover. Then when we heard it, it was something unique, it was something different, it was very soulful. There was a little bit of a mass appeal pop feel kind of in there as well. But at the time, in 1979, when that album came out, I did not know that you guys were from Philadelphia.
Yeah, straight out of Philly.
Yeah, and then I know that, you know, with Philadelphia and growing up on Philadelphia music, I know there are so many stories behind the music. So before you guys got signed to Arista Records and came out with that epic, iconic album, what was going on in Philadelphia back in the day when you guys came together as a band, and what was happening in the neighborhoods with other bands and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, Philly was a city of bands. There were bands all over Philadelphia. Each neighborhood had at least one band. And, you know, it would be, you know, comprised of guys from the neighborhood and, you know, ladies from the neighborhood. And the young people in the neighborhood supported the bands. And then there was this, we would play cabarets. Cabarets were like these events where the audience, the folks who were buying the tickets, would bring their own food, bring their own liquor, and the
kind of like a hood bar back in the day.
Yeah, but it was like done in a big hall.
Right,
you know?
right. Okay.
And then they would sell setups, which was like ice and soda, and that was the only thing that they were actually selling from the venue. But everything else, folks bought themselves. So there was a real feeling of just like a home party with the smell of chicken and, you know, macaroni and cheese, or whatever folks were bringing to there. So there was always a bunch of food and a good time. And people came just to have a good time, and they would have at these cabarets 3, 4, maybe 5 bands. Sometimes they have what they would call battles of the bands.
Wow.
Right. So they would be all over Philly, and so a band might do 3 or 4 cabarets a day.
Wow.
It's all, you know, from the early evening all the way to the late, or I should say the next morning.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, partying. So there was that was a lot of great music coming out of Philly, and each part of Philly, each band had its own sound. Breakwater came out of the Germantown Mount area. There was also another band, Sundown, that was from our neighborhood. With Eubanks brother, Kevin Eubanks, and Robin Eubanks, and Billy Johnson, who went on to play with Mays as well. Also, well, yeah, as you know, Frankie Beverly came out of Philly. They were actually our old heads.
Oh, okay.
You know, they came before Breakwater. There was a group called the Soul de Valiants, and these were like the bands that we looked up to, and so it was coming out on their coattails. You know, Breakwater and Sundown and Raw Image, Brutus, and just so many great bands out of Philly. There was such a feeling of music in the city and creating, and that is not even talking about Philly International, which was a whole other thing that was happening. So Philly had has a really rich musical history. It's baked into the root of the city, you know.
Right.
Yes.
Now, so I came up more in the DJ era. So as a DJ, the disco era, we know disco, the foundation of disco came out of Philadelphia, and once we started mixing records and making people dance, that was one of the ways that the DJ guy, girl, whatever would get the attention of people. Like, I'm a single guy, I'm the DJ, I'm like, the star for the night. What was it like with the bands and the interaction when you guys were on stage? Did you have like the fans come up to you afterwards and try to get you guys in trouble?
Well, yeah, hey, it's always been that way. I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
So when I first started playing music, I was in middle school, and I wasn't real popular, and just kind of a nerdy kid that played music. One afternoon, a couple of musicians that were in the school band, we went to the auditorium and we started jamming. And there was a song called Inagata Davida. You remember that song?
No.
It's an old one,
Okay,
man. It's an old
okay.
rock and roll song, is what it is,
Okay.
rock song. So we started playing this song, and the line goes boom, 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 boom.
I do know that
boom,
bass line.
boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. Well, we started playing that song, and all of a sudden, all of the girls in the school started coming into the auditorium to the front of the stage. Before we knew it, the whole auditorium was full. And I'm looking at my bass and looking at the other musicians, and I could not believe this. The power that this music had. That's the first time that I ever experienced the power of music, the attraction of music, and what it does to people. And it was that day that I knew
You realized
that I was going to be a musician. Yes.
Wow.
So when you talk about the attraction and the relationship between the musicians and the listener, it is a intense 360-degree relationship. Because without the listener, the music kind of goes nowhere. There's no place for it to go.
Right.
But when it hits what it's supposed to hit, which are the listeners, and when it hits them in their heart, then what happens is they feed back to the musicians. So there becomes this 360-degree cycle where everybody is involved in creating this music. Even the audience is creating what the musicians are giving, and it's going back and forth, and that's the way God planned it.
So, it's funny when you say that, because people have this conversation a lot now about, protecting their energy, their vibe, their mental health and stuff like that. And music has always been a way for me personally, and I'm sure, a lot of other people, that it puts you in a certain space, a certain energy, a certain vibe. And when I listened to that first Breakwater album, it did take me somewhere, especially the song "You Know I Love You, Girl." That's such a powerful, straightforward message from a guy to a woman that he's interested in, or even if it's someone that you've been in a relationship with. What was the story behind that song? And Gene Robinson he's still the lead singer of Breakwater today, did a phenomenal job with those vocals, and he still does a phenomenal job. When I saw you guys at City Winery a few weeks ago.
Right.
But what was the chemistry or the collaboration that brought that song together?
You Know I Love You was written by Greg Scott, our saxophone player.
Okay.
And that song came from his heart to whoever it is that he was singing to at that time.
Right.
I'm sure when he sings it now, we say now he's thinking about his wife that he's with now. Right. But that's the way music works. Right. You are moved by your experiences. And the wonderful thing about music, real music, is that when you create something that is a part of you, and it may not be perfect, it may not be in any type of a box that the music business creates. It's just a real feeling about an experience that you have. That is the music that touches people. It goes beyond everything else, and it touches people because it touches them with in the midst of who they really are.
That's the difference between, I think, when you look at groups and successful groups and writers and producers, they have those experiences outside the recording studio. I've seen writers, producers, singers try to make hit records and just by going in the studio, spend a lot of time in the studio. But you know, the way you guys came up in a band, your experience, what happened, you know, when you were in middle school, and I'm sure a lot of the other songs and experiences that went into your music that aren't perfect. That was the one thing that you said. It's not perfect, but so life isn't perfect. Relationships aren't perfect.
Right.
And they're not in a box. And that's where those stories become really interesting and connect to people, because our lives are like that.
Yeah.
They're not perfect. We're not in a box. Everybody has their own experience, but there's something that bing hits you in a way where it's like, wow, you know, I can relate to that. Usher does that with his music. He has a new song called Good Good. Must be, you know, Confessions came out of a story in his life. His new song Good Good is about, you know, hey, we're not good in our, because we broke up, we're not good, but we're good. You know, it's like, okay, I understand where he's going with that. So even today, you have a new song out, and there's still songs that you write, and your wife is part of this project, right?
Yes.
What was the chemistry that went into that, so that you, and tell us about the song and where people can find it, and of course we have a link so that folks can check it out on a website, but tell us what Steve Green is doing today.
Yes, right. So we have a new song. I do have another band, Steve Green and the Elevators.
All right.
Yes. And this song, we have a new song. It's called "Dancing in Paradise," and this song came about during the pandemic, when my wife and I were at home, and the song is about finding paradise wherever you are.
Right.
You know, so then, and even during time of being on lockdown, you know, to find that special place where you can go together or go alone, that where your paradise is, and that's what the song is about. Now, here's the interesting thing about my wife, Rose, is that she is not a professional singer, but there are so many people that have talent, that they just have talent. And so I wrote the music and she wrote the words.
Wow.
So when we went into the studio, because she wrote the words and she understood the song so well, I told her to sing it. And I bought it. Warren Cooper, who's a great vocalist from Philadelphia, he came in to do the male part of the song, and she just sounds so phenomenal.
Wow. Yes,
and she because it's honest.
Right.
It's not perfect. It's transparent. It's from the heart, and that's what music is.
Yeah.
And the beauty of what she creates is like the feedback that I'm getting at this point, particularly in Europe, where we released a single. Is that folks are saying, who's the girl? We want to hear more of her, you know.
Wow.
So we're actually in the process of recording some more music with her. But that song is an honest piece of our lives. Yes.
Wow.
And it's available on YouTube, on iTunes, and all platforms. Yes.
Well, Steve, thank
Dancing
you.
in Paradise.
Dancing in Paradise. Thank you so much for being transparent with us and sharing your stories. And of course, this is Philly R&B Now, and it's great to see everything from your journey from back in the day with the bands before the record deal, and then everything up until this day, man. Thank you so much. And you know, I'm a Breakwater fan from A to Z. I'll be at the next Breakwater show singing what's my favorite song? You know I love you, girl. And of course, say it, girl.
Say you love me,
yeah,
girl.
Say you love me. Yes. Steve Green. This is Philly R&B Now. I'm Jay Dixon. Thanks for checking in, folks.